Admiral Vex's Tar stood in the center of the massive command room, his 4 arms crossed behind his back. The Zephyrian officer had served the Empire for over 50 years, and nothing surprised him anymore. The space around Kepler Prime was the most secure in all of Imperial space. 3 rings of defense stations, quantum barrier fields, and the finest fleet in the galaxy protected this system. The morning shift was quiet, as it always was. The quantum barriers kept everything out. No ship could travel faster than light. Within 50 light-years of this place. The Empire had made sure of that 200 years ago when they discovered the humans. "Sir," called sensor technician Zilnox from his station. His voice shook slightly. "I'm getting some strange readings on the outer edge scanner." Vextar's main eyes rolled. Young technicians always got excited about space dust and asteroid fragments. "What kind of readings, technician?" "Energy signatures, sir. Big ones. But they don't match any known ship types in our database." Zilnox's scales turned a pale green, the Zephyrian sign of worry. "The computer says they look like human technology." The Admiral's laugh was harsh and loud. Several other officers in the command center turned to look. Human technology? Those primitives barely learned to leave their planet 50 years ago. Their fastest ships take months just to reach their nearest star. "But sir, the energy readings are getting stronger. Much stronger." Zilnox's claws clicked nervously on his control panel. "The signature suggests a ship over 2 kilometers long." Lieutenant Craven, Vextar's personal aide, stepped closer to the sensor station. She was young for an officer, but sharp and careful. Her bright yellow eyes studied the data on the screen. "Admiral, these readings are unlike anything we've seen. The energy pattern is completely new." Vextar walked over to the sensor station. His heavy boots made loud sounds on the metal floor. The other officers in the command room stopped their work to watch. In 50 years of service, no one had ever seen anything get through the quantum barriers. "Show me," he ordered. The main display screen lit up with sensor data. Lines of numbers and energy readings filled the screen. At the edge of the system, a bright dot pulsed steadily. The computer analysis showed power levels that made no sense. "This has to be a sensor ghost," Vextar said firmly. "Some kind of equipment failure." "When did you last run diagnostics on the long-range sensors?" "Yesterday morning, sir. All systems showed perfect operation." Zilnox's voice was getting higher. "Sir, look at the power readings. This thing is putting out more energy than our biggest battleships." Craven moved to another console and began running her own scans. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls. "Admiral, I'm reading the same thing on backup sensors." "This is not equipment failure." The command room grew quiet. 50 other officers stopped their work and listened. Everyone knew what the quantum barriers meant. Nothing got through them. Nothing could get through them. The Empire's best scientists had spent decades perfecting the technology. "Maybe it's one of our own ships with a damaged communication system," suggested Communications Officer Thrennick. "Could be a patrol vessel returning from deep space." Vextar shook his head. "All our ships are accounted for. Besides, our ships can't travel faster than light in this system either. The barriers affect everyone equally." The bright dot on the screen pulsed again. This time, the energy reading spiked even higher. Computer warnings began flashing red across multiple screens. "Sir," Zilnox said quietly, "the object is moving. It's heading directly toward the inner system. At this speed, it will reach the defense perimeter in 6 hours." Craven ran more scans from her station. "Energy signature analysis complete, Admiral. The computer matches this to human reactor technology, but amplified beyond anything in our records. The power output suggests artificial gravity systems, advanced shields, and weapon systems we've never seen before." The Admiral felt a cold feeling in his stomach. In all his years of service, he had never felt fear. But this was different. This was impossible. Could the humans have developed new technology? Asked Thrennick. It's been 50 years since we last updated our intelligence on their capabilities. Vextar's laugh was not as confident as before. 50 years is nothing. These creatures barely invented nuclear power when we found them. They live short lives and fight wars with chemical explosives. There's no way they could develop anything to challenge our barriers. But even as he spoke, doubt crept into his voice. The readings on the screen were real. Something was out there. And it was big, powerful, and heading their way. Lieutenant Craven, send a priority message to Fleet Command. Alert them to possible barrier breach, but mark it as a potential false alarm. He paused and looked at the screen again. Also, bring the defense fleet to yellow alert. Yes, sir. Craven moved quickly to carry out the orders. Zilnox spoke up again, his voice barely above a whisper. Admiral, there's something else. The energy signature. It's not constant. It's pulsing in a pattern, almost like it's scanning us. Every officer in the command room turned to look at the sensor screen. The bright dot pulsed steadily, like a heartbeat. And with each pulse, it grew brighter and closer. Admiral Vextar stared at the screen and felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. For the first time in his long military career, he was looking at something that should not exist. Something that challenged everything the Empire knew about human capabilities. The impossible was heading straight for them, and it would arrive in less than 6 hours. Space around Kepler Prime shimmered like water on a hot day. The quantum barriers that had protected the system for 2 centuries began to bend and twist in ways they were never designed to handle. Admiral Vextar watched from his command center as reality itself seemed to fold. Sir, the energy readings are off the scale, Zilnox reported. His voice cracked with stress. Whatever is out there, it's doing something to space itself. The main display showed impossible images. Space was bending around a point of darkness, creating a tunnel that seemed to go nowhere and everywhere at once. The quantum barriers sparked and failed as something pushed through them like they were made of paper. All ships, battle stations, Vextar ordered. His voice carried through the communication system to every Imperial vessel in the system. Unknown, contact approaching. Weapons ready, but do not fire without direct orders. Then it happened. Space snapped back to normal, with a flash of blue light. Where empty space had been moments before, a ship materialized. But calling it just a ship was like calling a star just a light. The vessel was over 2 kilometers long, built with clean lines and smooth curves. It was clearly designed for war. But it looked nothing like Imperial ships. Where Zephyrian vessels were built with sharp angles and aggressive spikes, this ship flowed like water made solid. Its hull was dark gray, with blue lights running along its length. Mother of stars, whispered Lieutenant Craven. Look at the size of that thing. The human battleship hung in space like it owned the system. No weapons were visible on its hull, but sensor readings showed power levels that made Imperial dreadnoughts look like patrol boats. The ship's shields glowed faintly around its hull, and the energy output was steady and controlled. Communications, try to contact them, Vextar ordered. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly. Standard Imperial greeting protocols. Communications Officer Thrennick worked at his station. Channel open, sir. Broadcasting on all standard frequencies. The response came immediately. A human voice spoke in perfect Imperial standard, the language used throughout Zephyrian space. The voice was calm and professional, with just a hint of accent. Imperial Command. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran colonial ship Defiance. We come in peace, but prepared for any response. Please acknowledge. The command center fell silent. Every officer stared at the communication console. A human ship, inside their most secure system, speaking their language perfectly. It was impossible, but it was happening. Vextar stepped forward to the communication station. Human vessel. This is Admiral Vextar of the Imperial Defense Force. You have violated our space and broken through classified defense systems. Explain how you are here. Captain Chen's laugh came through the speakers. It was not mocking, but it held confidence that made every Zephyrian in the room uncomfortable. Admiral Vextar, we are here because we chose to be here. Your quantum barriers are impressive, but they work by preventing faster-than-light travel through space. We don't travel through space anymore. What do you mean? Vextar demanded. We fold space itself, Admiral. Instead of going around your barriers or through them, we step over them entirely. It's a technique we developed about 30 years ago. We've been waiting for the right time to introduce ourselves properly. Craven was running scans on the human ship from her station. Admiral, their technology readings are incredible. Power systems we don't recognize, hull materials that don't match anything in our database, and weapon signatures that. She paused. Sir, I can't get clear readings on their weapons. It's like they're hidden somehow. Vextar felt sweat forming on his scaled forehead. This was rapidly becoming the worst day of his career. Captain Chen, you will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded for inspection. You are in violation of Imperial space. The human's response came quickly. I'm afraid that won't be possible, Admiral. The Defiance is a sovereign vessel of the Terran Colonial Union. We recognize no Imperial authority over human ships or human space. On the tactical display, more contacts appeared. The Imperial fleet was moving into position around the human battleship. 15 heavy cruisers, 8 battleships, and dozens of smaller vessels surrounded the lone human ship. Captain Chen, you are outnumbered 15-1. Your ship may be advanced, but you cannot fight our entire fleet. You're right, Admiral. We can't fight your entire fleet. Captain Chen's voice held a strange tone that Vextar couldn't identify. But we don't need to fight all of you. We only need to prove that fighting us would be a mistake. Suddenly, alarms began ringing throughout the command center. Zealnox's scales went pale green as he read his sensors. Admiral, I'm reading massive power spikes from the human ship. Whatever they're doing, they're charging up something big. All ships prepare to fire, Vextar ordered. Human vessel, power down immediately, or we will open fire. Admiral, Captain Chen said calmly, please observe your outermost defense platform, the one designated Delta 7. On the tactical display, defense platform Delta 7 suddenly went dark. Not destroyed, not damaged, just turned off. Every system shut down at once, leaving the massive station floating dead in space. How did you do that? Vextar's voice came out as barely a whisper. We've been studying your technology for 200 years, Admiral. We know how every system in this space works. Probably better than you do. We can turn off any piece of equipment in this system without causing permanent damage. Or, we can do much worse. If we need to. The command center was dead quiet. Every officer stared at the tactical display showing the disabled defense platform. The implications were terrifying. If the humans could disable one platform so easily, they could disable everything. What do you want? Vextar asked. We want to talk, Admiral. We want to end the isolation that your empire imposed on humanity 2 centuries ago. We want to join galactic civilization as equals, not as subjects. Captain Chen's voice stayed calm and professional, but everyone in the command center could hear the strength behind her words. The Defiance is here to prove that the age of human quarantine is over. We've had 200 years to think about this moment, Admiral. We're ready for whatever comes next. Admiral Vextar looked at his officers, then at the tactical display showing the lone human ship surrounded by the Imperial fleet. Somehow, he no longer felt like his ships had the advantage. Captain Sarah Chen sat in the command chair of the TCS Defiance, watching the Imperial fleet position itself around her ship. 800 human crew members worked quietly at their stations, monitoring systems that would have seemed like magic to the Zephyrians surrounding them. "Captain," said Commander Jackson, her first officer, "Imperial ships are maintaining distance, but weapons are powered. They're trying to scan us, but our stealth fields are holding." Chen nodded. The humans had spent decades studying Imperial technology from the ships that patrolled the quantum barriers. Every Zephyrian weapon system, every sensor array, every tactical doctrine was known to human intelligence. It had been surprisingly easy to develop countermeasures. "Communications, open a channel to Admiral Vextar. It's time we explained a few things." The view screen showed the Imperial Command Center. Admiral Vextar stood rigid, his forearms held stiffly at his sides. Behind him, Chen could see dozens of Zephyrian officers working frantically at their stations. "Admiral," Chen began, "I can see your people are trying to scan our ship. You're wondering how we built something like the Defiance." Vextar's expression was hard. "Our sensors show technology we don't understand. Your power systems alone produce more energy than our largest space stations. How is this possible?" "No," Chen smiled. "It's possible, because we had 200 years to work on it. While your empire grew comfortable with its dominance, humanity was locked in a box and forced to innovate. Do you want to know what we learned, Admiral?" Before Vextar could answer, Chen continued. "We learned that the Empire stopped advancing decades ago. Your newest battleship uses the same basic design as ships built 50 years ago. Your weapons haven't improved. Your engines haven't improved." "Impossible," Vextar said firmly. "Imperial technology is the most advanced in the galaxy. We conquered dozens of species with our superior weapons and ships. You conquered species that were even less advanced than you were," Chen corrected. "But you never faced anyone who had time to study you, learn from you, and then surpass you. On the Defiance," Science Officer Dr. Martinez looked up from her station. "Captain, their scan attempts are getting more aggressive. Should I demonstrate our defensive capabilities?" Chen considered for a moment. "Yes, but gently. We want to educate them, not terrify them." The human battleship's external lights flickered in a complex pattern. To the Zephyrians, it looked like a system malfunction. But Chen was sending a message in perfect Imperial Navy code, transmitted by light pulses faster than any Zephyrian computer could track. In the Imperial Command Center, Communications Officer Thrennick suddenly looked confused. "Admiral, I'm receiving a message, but it's not coming through our radio systems. It's being sent by their hull lights. In our highest security naval code. In our highest security naval code. That's classified information," Vextar said slowly. "No non-Imperial species knows those codes." Captain Chen's voice came through the speakers again. "Admiral, we just transmitted your complete battle plans for this system, your defensive positions, and the patrol schedules for the next month. All in your own secret codes. We learned those codes by studying your communications for decades." The command center fell silent. Every officer stared at their instruments, realizing that their most secret information was known to the enemy. "How many of our secrets do you know?" Vextar asked quietly. "All of them, Admiral. We know the location of every Imperial world, every fleet base, every manufacturing center. We know your military strength, your political structure, and your economic weaknesses. 200 years is a long time to study your captors." Suddenly, alarms began ringing in the Imperial Command Center. Tactical Officer Rentos called out urgently. "Admiral, 6 Imperial fighters just launched an unauthorized attack run on the human ship. They ignored orders to maintain distance." Chen sighed. On every ship, there were always hot-headed pilots who thought they could solve problems with weapons. "Commander Jackson, activate point defense systems. Minimum force." The 6 Zephyrian fighters approached the Defiance at attack speed, their weapons charging for a strike run. They were fast, agile craft flown by experienced pilots. Against any other single ship, even an Imperial battleship, they would have been a serious threat. The human battleship didn't move. It didn't turn to face the attackers or power up visible weapons. Instead, small sections of its hull opened to reveal systems the Zephyrians had never seen before. Beams of coherent energy lanced out from the Defiance. But these weren't the crude lasers or plasma bolts used by Imperial ships. These were precision instruments that could target individual components on an enemy vessel. The first fighter suddenly lost power to its engines. The second found its weapons offline. The third had its communication system shut down. Within seconds, all 6 fighters were drifting helplessly in space, their systems surgically disabled. "Rescue shuttles dispatched," Chen announced calmly. "Your pilots are unharmed, Admiral. We'll return them to you shortly." In the command center, every Zephyrian stared at the tactical display in shock. 6 fighters had been neutralized in seconds without being destroyed. The precision required for such an attack was beyond anything they thought possible. "Those were our best pilots," Vextar said slowly, "flying our newest fighters." "I know," Chen replied. "We have complete technical specifications for those fighters, Admiral. We know every weakness, every system vulnerability, every tactical limitation. We've run thousands of simulations against Imperial forces." Lieutenant Craven was studying her sensor readings. "Admiral, the human ship's power output barely changed during that engagement. They used less than 1% of their available energy to disable our fighters." The implications hit every officer in the command center at once. If the Defiance could disable 6 fighters with almost no effort, what could it do to larger ships? What could it do to their defense stations? What could it do to their entire fleet? "Captain Chen," Vextar said carefully, "what exactly are you trying to prove here?" "I'm proving that the balance of power has changed, Admiral. The Empire kept humanity isolated because you thought we were primitive and dangerous. But isolation gave us something you didn't expect. It gave us time to watch, learn, and prepare." Chen stood up from her command chair. "Every human ship is built specifically to fight Imperial forces. Our weapons are designed to penetrate your shields. Our defenses are built to stop your attacks. Our engines can outrun your fastest ships, and our computers can hack your most secure systems." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We don't want war, Admiral. But if war comes, it won't be the easy victory the Empire expects." Admiral Vextar looked around his command center at his officers. He could see fear in their eyes, and he felt the same fear growing in his own hearts. Everything they believed about human limitations was proving to be wrong. "What do you want from us?" he asked. "We want you to contact your superiors, Admiral. We want them to know that the age of human quarantine is over. And we want them to understand that their next decision will determine whether humans join galactic civilization as friends or take their place by force." Admiral Vextar paced back and forth in his private office, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. The secure communication link to Imperial High Command crackled with static across the vast distances of space. High Admiral Crexness appeared on the screen, his ancient face marked with the scars of a dozen military campaigns. "Vextar, your report makes no sense," the High Admiral said harshly. "One human ship cannot possibly threaten an entire Imperial fleet. You have 15 battleships under your command. Sir, I've sent you the tactical recordings. This isn't a normal ship. Their technology is far beyond anything we've encountered." Vextar stopped pacing and faced the screen. "They disabled 6 fighters without breaking their defensive stance. They knew our classified codes. They can apparently shut down our defense platforms at will." High Admiral Crexness made a dismissive gesture. "Impossible. Human technology is primitive. Our intelligence reports show they barely have working faster than light drives." "Our intelligence reports are 200 years old," Vextar said quietly, "and they were wrong." Before the High Admiral could respond, alarms began ringing throughout the command center. Lieutenant Craven's voice came through the communication system. Admiral Vex-Tar to the command center immediately. Priority Alpha. Emergency. Vex-Tar cut the connection and rushed back to the main command room. What he saw made his blood turn cold. The tactical display now showed dozens of new contacts throughout Imperial space. Human ships had appeared near major worlds, fleet bases, and industrial centers across the Empire. "Report," he ordered. Craven's voice was tight with stress. "Sir, 37 human vessels have appeared simultaneously across 12 Imperial systems. Each ship matches the energy signature of the Defiance. They all arrived within the past 10 minutes. Zil Knox looked up from his sensor station, his scales pale with fear. "Admiral, the pattern is clear. They've positioned ships near every major Imperial world within 50 light-years. Our most important systems, our fleet bases, our manufacturing centers, they're all covered." Captain Chen's voice came through the communication system. "Admiral Vex-Tar, I believe you're seeing our full diplomatic mission now. The Defiance was never alone. Junter 5. How many ships do you have?" Vex-Tar asked. "Enough," Chen replied simply. "Each ship is positioned near critical Imperial infrastructure, not to threaten or destroy, but to demonstrate that the Empire no longer controls access to its most important systems." The tactical display updated again. New information flowed in from across the Empire as Imperial commanders reported the sudden appearance of human vessels. The pattern was clear and terrifying. Every major world, every fleet base, every industrial center had a human ship nearby. "This is an act of war," Vex-Tar said. "No, Admiral. This is a diplomatic mission with appropriate security measures." Chen's voice remained calm and professional. "We're not here to conquer or destroy. We're here to negotiate the end of human quarantine." On the main screen, Admiral Vex-Tar could see the Defiance hanging motionless in space, surrounded by his fleet. But now, he understood that his fleet was irrelevant. Even if he could destroy the human battleship, 36 others waited throughout Imperial space. "What are your terms?" he asked. "Simple and non-negotiable," Chen replied. "First, immediate shutdown of all quantum barrier systems that prevent human faster-than-light travel. Second, recognition of the Terran Colonial Union as an equal sovereign state. Third, establishment of formal diplomatic relations between our peoples." Communications Officer Thrennick reported from his station. "Admiral, we're receiving similar demands from human commanders throughout Imperial space. The message is identical from all 37 ships." Vex-Tar felt a sinking feeling in his stomach. This wasn't a spontaneous action by a single ship. This was a coordinated operation, planned in detail over years or decades. "And if we refuse your terms?" he asked. Captain Chen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried a harder edge. "Admiral, we've spent 2 centuries studying the Empire. We know which systems are critical to your economy. We know which worlds cannot survive without constant supply shipments. We know which industrial centers produce the materials that keep your fleet operational." The implications hit Vex-Tar like a physical blow. The humans weren't positioned to destroy Imperial worlds. They were positioned to strangle the Empire's economy and military supply lines. "You would blockade our trade routes," he said. "We would prefer not to, Admiral. But if the Empire chooses war over diplomacy, we're prepared to show you how much your civilization depends on the free movement of ships and goods." Lieutenant Craven was monitoring communications from across the Empire. "Sir, reports coming in from Fleet Command. Human ships near industrial worlds are scanning our manufacturing facilities. They're mapping our supply chains and transportation networks. They're preparing for economic warfare," Vex-Tar realized. "They could shut down our entire economy without firing a shot." "The Empire has grown large and comfortable," Chen said. "Your worlds depend on each other for survival. Your fleet depends on regular supply convoys. Your people expect food and manufactured goods from dozens of different systems. We can interrupt all of that. 3. Zealnox spoke up from his sensor station. Admiral, I'm reading massive data transmission between the human ships. They're sharing information in real time across dozens of star systems. Quantum entanglement communication, Chen explained. Another technology we developed during our isolation. Our ships can coordinate instantly across any distance. Your ships still use radio signals that take years to cross Imperial space. The tactical situation was becoming clearer by the minute. The humans had not just achieved technological superiority in weapons and engines. They had developed communication and coordination capabilities that made the Imperial fleet look primitive. High Admiral Krexness appeared on the communication screen again, his face twisted with rage. Vex Tar, I don't care what tricks these humans have. Destroy that ship immediately. The Empire does not negotiate with primitives. Sir, with respect, these are not primitives, Vex Tar replied. And destroying one ship will accomplish nothing. They have 36 more ships, positioned to cripple our economy. Then we'll destroy all of them. The Imperial fleet has over 1,000 ships, spread across our territory. Admiral Vex Tar looked at the tactical display showing human vessels near every critical Imperial system. He thought about the Defiance's demonstration of technological superiority. He considered the implications of human ships that could appear anywhere at will, coordinate instantly across vast distances, and shut down Imperial systems without warning. Sir, he said quietly, I don't think we can win this war. The communication screen went dark as High Admiral Krexness cut the connection in fury. But Vex Tar knew the truth. The Empire faced an enemy that had used 2 centuries of isolation to prepare for this exact moment. Captain Chen's voice came through the speakers one more time. Admiral, your superiors have 24 hours to accept our terms. After that, we'll begin demonstrating what economic warfare looks like. I suggest you convince them that diplomacy is preferable to the alternative. Admiral Vex Tar stared at the tactical display and realized that the Empire's greatest mistake had been giving humanity time to prepare. 200 years of forced isolation had created an enemy that was ready for every possible Imperial response. The age of human quarantine was indeed over. The question now was whether it would end with diplomacy or with the collapse of the Imperial economy. 22 hours had passed since Captain Chen's ultimatum. Admiral Vex Tar stood in his command center, watching reports flow in from across the Empire. The human ships remained in position near every critical Imperial system, but they had not fired a single shot. Instead, they were doing something far more unsettling. Report from Zephyr Prime, Lieutenant Craven announced. The human vessel there has been broadcasting detailed information about Imperial history, including classified military operations from the past 50 years. Antares Station reports similar broadcasts, added Communications Officer Thrennick. The humans are telling our own people things about the Empire that even most officers don't know. Admiral Vex Tar felt a growing unease. What kind of information? Everything, sir. Economic data, military casualties, political decisions, failed colonies, suppressed rebellions. It's like they have access to our deepest archives. Zealnox looked up from his sensor station. Admiral, the human ship is requesting permission to meet with you face to face. Captain Chen wants to come aboard our station for direct negotiations. Vex Tar considered the request. Meeting with the enemy commander would be unprecedented. But these were unprecedented circumstances. Tell her she may come aboard. Standard, diplomatic protocols. 2 hours later, Admiral Vex Tar stood in the main docking bay of his command station. The human shuttle that approached was sleek and elegant. Unlike the bulky Imperial designs, it docked smoothly, and Captain Sarah Chen emerged with a small escort. Vex Tar was surprised by what he saw. Captain Chen was smaller than most Imperial officers, with the typical human features he remembered from old intelligence files. But she moved with confidence and authority that commanded respect. Her uniform was simple, but clearly well-made, and her escort of 4 human soldiers stood with quiet professionalism. "Admiral Vex Tar," Captain Chen said, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." Vextar awkwardly returned the gesture. "Captain Chen, I hope you're here to discuss reasonable terms for your withdrawal." Chen smiled. "I'm here to help you understand why withdrawal isn't necessary, Admiral. May we speak privately?" They moved to Vextar's personal conference room. The Admiral's aide, Lieutenant Craven, joined them along with Chen's second-in-command, Commander Jackson. The 4 officers sat around a table that had hosted countless military planning sessions. "Admiral," Chen began, "I need to tell you something that your superiors don't want you to know. This situation was always going to happen eventually." "What do you mean?" Chen activated a small device that projected holographic images into the air above the table. "The Empire has been in decline for over a century. Your economy is stagnant. Your technology has stopped advancing. Your people are starting to question Imperial authority." The holographic display showed economic charts, population data, and political analysis. Vextar recognized some of the information, but much of it was classified beyond his security level. "We know about the rebellions on the Outer Rim worlds," Chen continued. "We know about the resource shortages that your government hides from the public. We know about the political factions that want to reform the Empire's authoritarian structure." "How do you know all this?" Vextar asked. "Because we've been listening, Admiral. For 200 years, we've monitored your communications, studied your society, and analyzed your weaknesses. Not to conquer you, but to understand you." Commander Jackson spoke for the first time. "The Empire isolated humanity because you feared we would be competition. But isolation gave us something more valuable than weapons or ships. It gave us perspective." Chen nodded. "We watched the Empire make the same mistakes that every dominant civilization makes. You grew comfortable with power. You stopped innovating because you didn't face serious challenges. You focused on controlling your subjects instead of improving their lives." The holographic display changed to show images of human colonies and cities. Unlike Imperial worlds with their rigid architecture and heavy security, human settlements looked organic and diverse. "We used our isolation differently, Admiral. Instead of building walls to keep others out, we built communities that could adapt and grow. Instead of perfecting weapons of control, we perfected tools of cooperation." Vextar studied the images. Human cities looked chaotic compared to Imperial designs, but there was something appealing about their energy and diversity. "What are you proposing?" he asked. "Partnership, Admiral. The Empire needs what humanity has learned. You need new ideas, new technology, new approaches to old problems. And we need access to the galaxy that the Empire has kept from us." Lieutenant Craven spoke hesitantly. "Captain Chen, your people are still relatively few compared to the Empire, even with superior technology. How could partnership benefit us?" 5. NT. Chen's smile was genuine and warm. "Lieutenant, have you ever wondered why the Empire stopped growing? Why your expansion slowed and then stopped completely 50 years ago?" "Resource limitations," Craven replied automatically. "The galaxy only has so many habitable worlds." "No," Chen said firmly. "The galaxy has millions of habitable worlds. The Empire stopped growing because it ran out of ideas. Your colonization methods haven't changed in centuries. Your terraforming technology is primitive. Your social structures can't adapt to new environments." The holographic display showed star maps with thousands of systems marked in blue. "These are worlds that Imperial surveys marked as uninhabitable. We've analyzed them all using modern techniques. At least 60% could be made suitable for life using human terraforming methods. Vextar stared at the display. The number of potential worlds was staggering. You could make all these worlds habitable? We could make them habitable together, Admiral. Human technology guided by Imperial resources and experience. New worlds settled by both species, working as partners instead of as rulers and subjects. The door to the conference room opened suddenly. High Admiral Krexness strode in, flanked by 6 Imperial guards. His face was twisted with rage. Admiral Vextar, you are relieved of command for unauthorized negotiations with the enemy. He glared at Captain Chen. Dawn. And you, human, are under arrest for invasion of Imperial space. Captain Chen remained seated and calm. High Admiral, I was invited here under diplomatic protocols. The Empire does not recognize human diplomatic status, Krexness snarled. Guards, arrest them both. Before the Imperial guards could move, Commander Jackson spoke quietly into his communication device. Defiance. This is Jackson. Implement Protocol 7. Throughout the command station, lights flickered and systems shut down. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. The High Admiral's guards found their weapons inoperative. What did you do? Krexness demanded. We demonstrated what we've been trying to tell you, Chen replied calmly. Your technology is vulnerable to ours. We can shut down any Imperial system at will. But we don't want to conquer the Empire. We want to save it. She stood up and faced the High Admiral directly. Sir, your Empire is dying. You can fight us and accelerate that death, or you can work with us and find new life. The choice is yours. I will never negotiate with primitives, Krexness said. Admiral Vextar had been listening quietly, but now he stood up as well. With respect, sir, these are not primitives. And if we don't negotiate, we'll lose everything. The High Admiral turned on Vextar. You would betray the Empire for these creatures? I would save the Empire by learning from these people, Vextar replied firmly. Captain Chen is offering us partnership, not conquest. New worlds, new technology, new possibilities. How is that betrayal? For long moments, the room was silent except for the hum of emergency power systems. Then, Captain Chen spoke softly. High Admiral, we know you love the Empire. We know you've spent your life defending it. But defending the Empire doesn't mean refusing to let it grow and change. She gestured to the star map still floating above the table. These worlds could support billions of Imperial citizens. New colonies, new opportunities, new hope for your people. All we ask is to be partners in building this future, instead of prisoners in our own space. High Admiral Krexness stared at the star map for a long time. Slowly, his expression changed from rage to something else. Something like hope mixed with fear. If we agree to your terms, he said quietly, what guarantee do we have that humanity won't eventually try to dominate the partnership? Captain Chen's smile was sad and understanding. No guarantee except our words, sir. But consider this. We had 200 years to plan your destruction. Instead, we used that time to plan your salvation. What does that tell you about human intentions? 3 months later, Admiral Vextar stood on the observation deck of the joint human-Imperial exploration ship Unity, watching the first combined colonization fleet approach a new world. Human and Zephyrian ships worked side by side, their crews learning from each other's strengths. The quantum barriers were gone. Trade flowed freely between human and Imperial space, and for the first time in over a century, the Empire was growing again. Captain Chen joined him at the observation window. Any regrets, Admiral? Vextar watched a human terraforming ship working alongside an Imperial construction vessel. Only that it took us so long to realize that our greatest enemies could become our greatest friends. Chen nodded. The impossible became inevitable, Admiral. It just took courage to accept the truth. In the distance, new worlds waited for new possibilities. The age of isolation was over, and the age of cooperation had begun.